how a family vacation to Barcelona exposed the lies that destroyed my marriage, with one update from the OP. Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be the person writing one of these, but here I am. My life is a mess, and it's entirely my fault. I need to get this off my chest, so buckle up because it's a long and dramatic ride. So, I'm James, 37. My wife Sarah is 34, and we have a 6-year-old son, Noah. Sarah and I had been planning a trip to Barcelona for months. It's always been Sarah's dream to visit. The architecture, the food, the beaches. It was her ultimate romantic fantasy. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Noah is a super active kid. You blink and he's already climbed something he shouldn't have or spilled something somewhere. Leaving him behind wasn't really an option. Initially, we planned for Noah to stay with Sarah's dad, Ron, while we had some couple time. But when Ron heard about the trip, he announced that he had always wanted to see Barcelona too. Sarah was thrilled and immediately invited him along. I wasn't thrilled. To be honest, I didn't want Ron coming, but Sarah was so excited about it being a family experience that I didn't have the heart to say no. Sarah handled all the bookings, and I didn't look too closely at the details. When we arrived, I realized she'd booked one single room with 2 queen beds. Look, I'm all for family bonding, but I'd envisioned this as a romantic getaway. We could afford 2 rooms. I'd budgeted for it, but Sarah thought it was better to keep Noah close. I tried to voice my frustration, but Sarah brushed me off, saying, "It's not a big deal, James." From the second we arrived, Ron made himself at home. He hadn't packed half of what he needed and immediately started using Sarah's toiletries, her face cream, her shampoo, her fancy lotions. I know Sarah didn't mind, but it really got under my skin. Then there was the snooping. One afternoon, while Sarah, Noah, and I were out exploring, Ron stayed behind. When we got back, I caught him rummaging through my suitcase. He claimed he was looking for a phone charger, but it didn't sit right with me. From that point on, I locked the suitcase. Oh, and the toothpaste. Ron didn't bring his own and just started using ours. I couldn't stop obsessing over whether his toothbrush had touched the nozzle. It sounds petty, but it drove me up the wall. The final straw came on the last morning of the trip. I woke up and saw Ron sitting on our bed, chatting with Noah. Our bed, the one Sarah and I shared. For some reason, that small thing made something in me snap. I confronted Ron right then and there. I asked him why he even came, accusing him of freeloading off us. I pointed out that I'd paid for everything, his meals, the hotel, even the outings, and he hadn't contributed a dime beyond his flight. Ron looked genuinely hurt, but I couldn't stop. I told him he had no respect for our boundaries, that he was constantly invading our space. Sarah walked in at the tail end of my rant, and let's just say it wasn't pretty. She blew up, saying I was out of line and that I'd embarrassed her dad. We had a massive fight, and I was so angry that I did something I regret to this day. I booked an early flight home and left. When I got home, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. The silence was deafening, though. Sarah tried calling me, but I ignored her. I told myself I needed space to process everything. Then came the text. It was from Sarah, and it was devastating. She told me she was staying at her dad's for a while and that she wasn't sure if she could forgive me. She said Noah was confused and upset, asking why I'd left. I called her back immediately, ready to apologize, but she didn't pick up. A few days later, I got a message from Ron. It was short and to the point. Sarah was looking into divorce. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it had come to this. I begged Ron to let me talk to her, but he said she wasn't ready. It's been a week since I got that message, and I feel like my world is falling apart. I've started seeing a therapist because I need to figure out why I let my anger and resentment take over. I realize now that I didn't handle any of this the right way. Instead of communicating my frustrations early on, I let them fester. I snapped at Ron when I should have had an honest conversation with Sarah. I abandoned my family when they needed me. I don't know if Sarah will ever forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve her forgiveness. But I'm determined to work on myself for Noah's sake. So, that's my story. Reddit, I'm a guy who let his pride and temper ruin everything. If you're reading this, don't make the same mistakes I did. Talk to your partner. Set boundaries before it's too late. Sarah, if you ever see this, I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you to everyone who's commented. Your advice has been hard to hear, but it's what I needed. I'm logging off for now to focus on therapy and figuring out how to rebuild my life. And now here's an update from the OP. It's been 3 months since everything fell apart, and I figured I owed you all an update. Things didn't go the way I hoped, but something happened recently that completely turned my world upside down. After Sarah told me she wanted a divorce, I threw myself into therapy. I needed to fix myself, not just for her, but for Noah. I learned a lot about my anger issues and how I'd been bottling up resentment for years instead of addressing it head-on. Therapy helped, but it didn't bring Sarah back. She had completely cut me off. No calls, no texts, nothing. Ron served as the middleman for anything about Noah, and it was clear he wasn't thrilled to be doing it. Then, about a month ago, I got an email. It wasn't from Sarah, though. It was from a woman named Emily. She introduced herself as Sarah's childhood friend, someone I'd never heard of before. She said she felt compelled to reach out after hearing about the divorce. I almost deleted the email, assuming it was spam, but then I noticed an attachment. It was a screenshot of messages between Sarah and Ron. The messages floored me. Sarah had been planning to leave me for months, long before our trip to Barcelona. Apparently, Ron's sudden interest in joining us wasn't random. It was part of Sarah's plan. She wanted him there to witness my behavior and back her up in case things got messy during the divorce. In one of the messages, Sarah even joked that the toothpaste thing was her idea to push me over the edge. I was furious, but also confused. This didn't sound like the Sarah I knew. I decided to confront Ron. When I called him, he denied everything at first, but I could hear the hesitation in his voice. Eventually, he cracked. He admitted that Sarah had confided in him about feeling trapped in our marriage. She didn't want to work things out. She wanted an excuse to leave without looking like the bad guy. The Barcelona trip was a test I was set up to fail. I was devastated. For months, I'd been beating myself up, thinking I was the sole reason my marriage fell apart. Now I realized it was never about the trip or even my anger. Sarah had one foot out the door long before we boarded that plane. But here's the twist. The betrayal didn't stop there. A week after confronting Ron, I received another email from Emily. This time, it wasn't just screenshots. It was a full-blown confession. Emily told me she'd been in love with Sarah for years. They'd reconnected 6 months ago, and their relationship had become more than friendly. Sarah was leaving me to be with Emily. I didn't know how to process that. Part of me felt like a fool for not seeing the signs, but another part felt an odd sense of relief. At least now I had answers. At least now I knew it wasn't just about me being a bad husband. I'm still processing everything. I've started talking to a lawyer about custody arrangements for Noah. My main focus now is being the best dad I can be, no matter what. As for Sarah and Emily, I wish them the best. I hope they find happiness, even if it came at the expense of our family. To everyone who followed my story and offered advice, thank you. Life doesn't always turn out how you expect, but sometimes the truth, as painful as it is, can set you free. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories like this one.